Remember when you were a kid and you were always asked, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd say 99% of those people, if you live here in the United States, were asking what career you wanted. No one ever asks, who do you want to become when you grow up? Meaning the person you want to become. And I think at midlife, it's a perfect time to explore that question. So for the past week and a half or so, I've been thinking about this question. Who do you want to become as a person? I kind of got prompted by the passing of former President Jimmy Carter. I was thinking, you know, professionally, what he was a politician, a lot of people say that he wasn't a great president. His presidency wasn't one of the most remarkable presidencies of the United States has ever had. Um, I don't know. I don't know how you would classify it. But as a human being, I think most people, no matter what political party they're affiliated with, would say, as a humanitarian, he was pretty much a great humanitarian. He built homes for Habitat for Humanity. He did a lot of work um, in foreign countries to help their electoral processes, and there's that processes, whatever. But he did a lot of good work after he got out of the White House, and so as a career, maybe not so great of a politician, but as a human being, pretty darn good. So I was thinking, by this time in our lives, if you're of a certain age, a Gen Xer or maybe a boomer, you've been a lot of things. You've had a lot of family roles, you've had a lot of career choices, career paths. Some of them may be what you wanted to be when you grow up, and you went there and you found out, heck, that's not what I wanted to be when I grew up. You may have gotten laid off, you may have gotten downsized. There's so many things that happen. You may have put away some interest. Maybe you thought you were going to be the next great guitar player. You were going to give Clapton a run for his money or become the next great Slash. And you put away your guitar because you had to go make a living for your family. Who knows? But I think this time in our lives is a really good time to ask, who do you want to be? And it's not about careers. It's not about making money. It's not about that. It's about internalizing that question and saying, what do I want people to know me or remember me for? That's also a little bit morbid, but, because, midlife, you think of it, you're over the hill, you're on the back end of life, but you're really not. You're really at a point in life when you've got a great understanding, really, I think at this point, of who you are. You may have been all of these different things, but you can go explore the things that you may have put aside, or something that you maybe don't even know anything about. Maybe you want to start a YouTube channel and you know nothing about it, and you go learn. Yeah, that's a good example. I went to college wanting to be a print journalist, and the program that I was in college didn't have a lot of print options, but it had a lot of television production, video production, filmmaking, things like that. So I ended up studying that and public relations more than I studied print journalism. And I discovered that I really enjoyed it, but I never got a job in that profession because the market that I lived in, Charleston, Huntington, was big enough that a lot of straight out of college students couldn't make it, so you had to go to a smaller market to get to that market, and go on up. So I kind of put that aside. I ended up doing AmeriCorps Vista for 3 years, and that was in a college, and that's how I ended up in higher ed. And then when I ended up in higher ed, because I was in the AmeriCorps program, I went and got a master's degree, and I met the dean of the library at the school I went to, and they had an opening there, and I applied for it. She remembered me from the class, and kind of like how I got my job. And then I became a librarian. I went to school to become a librarian, and that's kind of, but if you'd ask the 5-year-old me, are you going to be a librarian when you grow up? Heck no. I wanted to be a veterinarian because I love animals. I wanted to take care of animals. I had no idea that a veterinarian would have to do some of the things that they have to do. And I probably emotionally couldn't handle that. So, anyway, a long diatribe to say that, when you're asking a 4-year-old what they want to be when they grow up isn't necessarily going to be what a 45-year-old wants to be when they grow up. And so for me, I think this is a great time to start exploring those things, start putting together a list of things, not a bucket list, but a list of things you would like to accomplish. I was thinking of, you remember that Simpsons episode when Marge wants to leave her legacy?
I call it leaving your legacy. I've been doing the same thing for the last 10 years. And all I have to show for it is a clean floor. My legacy.
And she starts building these popsicle stick art. And then Homer, of course, destroys it because Homer is Homer, right? But I was thinking that's kind of what this is about. What do you want your legacy to be, whether or not you have children or not? Just who do you want to be? Not just define yourself by a role or it's like I see. I don't know if this is a thing everywhere, but around where I live here now and where I used to live, I see all these big SUVs and they've got these stickers on the back and they'll say, Kaylee's mom, Jaden's mom, Braden's mom. And you're identifying yourself as someone else's mother. You're not identifying yourself as you. And then I also was thinking of my grandmother's era, she's greatest generation era. Women of that era were often identified as Mrs. John Smith. It wasn't her name, it was his name. So you were identified as your husband's name. And I always thought that was weird. When I was a kid and I would see that on envelopes, or even when my aunt, my great aunt, would write her name as her husband's name, I always think, that's weird. You're who you are. So I think this question's always been in my head, that I want to be who I am. Plus I'm an Aquarius, and we're just darn weird, and I don't mind to admit that. So anyway, my question is, who do you want to be? Not professionally, not family wise. Like in the video I mentioned about never expecting to be 51, unmarried, and no children. That's true. But all of those things are um, titles or roles. They're not who I am. I don't have kids. I didn't get married. So I was letting that define me in a way that I think took away a lot of joy for me, because I was wanting that role maybe more than I was wanting just to live my life. And perhaps that's where the whole idea of just let it happen, or when you stop looking, you'll find the right person, which I still don't understand that whole concept, but I think that's maybe what they're getting at, is that you stop pressuring yourself to be this thing and you explore who you are. And I think that's one of the things I want to do in this part of my channel that I'm talking about, living a joyful midlife. Because there's the whole idea that you have to go through this midlife crisis. The whole trope of, especially it's usually with men, they're balding maybe, and they go get a toupee, and they go get all these new fancy clothes that are fashionable, and they go and they dump their wife of 35 years for some hot chick, and then they go sell their SUV or their minivan and go get a sports car. So they have their midlife crisis, but you never hear about a female midlife crisis. Rarely ever. I mean, that's kind of like a Hollywood trope that is out there. But it kind of like you almost is, it's almost like you're trying to reclaim your youth in a way, I guess, is what a midlife crisis in a nutshell is that you're trying to reclaim your youth. And I think you're looking at it the wrong way. Not necessarily reclaiming your youth. Like I said, you might have put away something when you were younger. You wanted to be the next greatest guitar hero, and you put that away. Um, to go get a real job, and not to say that being a guitarist isn't a real job, but to get a steady job and make a steady paycheck for your family or for yourself. And you gave up being a guitar hero. Well, you might not become a great guitar hero now, but you could go back and explore what you loved about that aspect of something. Like I was talking about going to school to be a journalist and discovering that I love video production. One of the things that I've discovered in since redoing this channel is that I really did like doing that, even though I never got a job in the profession. I love doing it, and YouTube has given me the opportunity to re-explore that. So I'm pretty happy and pretty excited to re-explore video production and all of the elements that I loved that back in the 90s you couldn't do. Now you can do it on your phone and a free software on the internet, and you can edit and do high end production I never could thought of doing when I was a college student. So stuff like that is what I'm saying, that when we want to be who we are or re-explore who we wanted to be. So I think that's something I want to talk about here. So who do you want to be in midlife? Is there something you put aside to become an adult? Is there something you always wanted to explore but never felt brave enough to do? Maybe you had critical parents that wouldn't let you do those things, and you decided not to go down that road. Um, it's not necessarily about regrets, it's just about things that you would like to explore now that you can, and you have either the means or the time or just the interest. It's something you never lost interest in doing. Let me know. Let me know some of the things that you're interested in, and other topics you might in this vein that you might want to talk about.